I'm Adam Blaney, so I'm the managing director for Xcede. We're a global staffing and consulting agency. I am probably big into technology, a bit of a geek. Obviously big into football as well, so excited to be here. We have Bailey.
Yeah, I'm Bailey. So I manage one of our data recruitment teams here at Xcede, and similar to Adam, big football fan. So been keeping an eye on the football data world since I joined the industry about 6 years ago, and seeing a lot which that clubs and agencies and different types of organisations are doing within the sporting world, which is very much why we're very excited that Joe invited us down here to give us a bit about his story and his background within football and data.
Joe, we've got just for your information, a kind of series of podcasts we're releasing. So hoping to get insights from a club perspective on commercial data and player data, from kind of partners in the football industry as well. So different kind of technology, player performance tools. For us today, though, your insights from someone who's been in a club and now at an agency is fantastic. But my introduction probably wouldn't do you justice. So.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. I think it's a great relevant topic at the moment, and for myself, coming through obviously football family with having my dad Steve in the game, coming through a coaching point of view, I've been able to be around him from being young, and then got into the game myself through performance analysis, and then obviously I moved across into recruitment and video scouting, and then that's really when the stats started to become into my vision, into the recruitment and the scouting game, filtering and choosing the best players and helping make more informed decisions, and then now coming across after being head of recruitment at Derby for 6 years, and all the experience there, came across to the agency side, and pleased to say that it's really relevant and prevalent in this side of the game as well, and it'd be good to talk about how we're using it and how it's been for me recently.
But I thought as a starting point, just as an introduction, football operations new era. Just a summary of kind of what you do here, what New Era kind of is about, just a kind of brief intro into that.
Yeah, no, it was interesting actually, because when I started out in football, it's not anything I thought I'd be doing or something I aimed out to do. I think it's something that's naturally evolved and found my way to it. I started off in scouting and recruitment, and made my way through there, and eventually got myself to head of recruitment at Derby before this job, and Derby was an amazing time with 6 years of head of recruitment there, 5 different managers, all different types of budgets and situations, and what actually happened to make my way into this area was that the club actually went into administration at the final point, and it was a point where all of us were having to open our eyes to the rest of the industry really, and other clubs to we didn't know the future at the time, and I'd obviously in that role been working really closely with agents and agencies, and I could see that they were starting to do more of the right things. I think it had a little bit of a bad reputation really of just taking money out of the game before, but from working with them I could see that there was a real need for it and a real place for it, and I could see what they were doing right and maybe what they were doing wrong and how they could service the clubs better, so really I created a little bit of a job spec. I started to see actually that football people were going into the agencies, and it became a little bit more of it was called the dark side very much before, and I think it was starting to get a little bit more to the grey side, the way it was going. So I pitched some ideas, and I aimed at agencies like New Era, who are I'd say not one of the big boys that have had massive investment from abroad or from merging big companies, but also not one of the smaller ones. So we pride ourselves on being able to give 1v1 support as well as group support from the agency, but have good weight in the market. So I purposely aimed at this type of agency, and really all I wanted to bring was club perspective, because the agents don't really know what's going on or what the decisions are being made in the clubs, from a manager, from scouting, from the data analysts, from recruitment analysts, from up to the owner and the chief exec. So my main thing was to come in and really have that link between agencies and clubs, somewhere where the clubs could come to talk to me with no real stress of giving away too much, or they know I've been in their position, so they're a lot more open and a lot more informal when they talk to me. That means we get more information, but they also get more information as well. Every window I was coming up to, I wanted to ring people to see, just have a quick conversation about, has so-and-so got 1 year left on his deal, or is he a free at the end of the year, or we've noticed that he's missed a few games, has he had an injury, or things like this. So they can ring me and have that quick information, whereas I think the feelings was if you ring the agent, you get into a little bit of a dialogue over sales, and it becomes a little bit of a pitch, and it's a bit of a longer conversation and things like that. So that was my main thing for coming in, and really what it's turned into as I've come into it is I'm really doing every role that you would do at a club. I'm doing here. I feel like a loan manager one day. I feel like an analyst another day. A video analyzer the next day. You're pitching to players, then you're talking with clubs. So it's really covered a lot of all the different jobs that you do in a club. But I'm doing it for over 100 players and within a company. I'm really glad the way it's gone, because I pictured it in one way and it's gone that way. So yeah, it's been great.
Yeah, great. And I guess specifically from the side you're in now, the grey side, the dark side, however you want to phrase it, are there kind of key areas you're using data? Are there kind of like the big three areas we look at are player performance, or or does it tend to vary depending on who you're working with?
Yeah, I think the day-to-day side of the data is definitely on performance, definitely on feedback to players to track progress. That's big at the moment. That can come from platforms, but can also come from the free access that's out there at the moment. There's some brilliant apps now that are giving us live. Even during games, I'm seeing how many touches players are having in games and things, and I'm just giving that feedback also to the agents to give them a little bit of an idea of, when you speak to the player, it looked a physical game, or it looked like he created 4 chances, or it looked like, and just little talking points that they can have with the player, and it's proved really valuable in having that communication with players and giving them feedback. We use the data to track what teams might be suitable for players that we've got, which is a really interesting one, trying to predict which managers or which clubs would suit your player in the next move. We can see that with some of the trends or the way that they play. And it just backs up something that the eye can see. We also like to talk about the window coming up with the players. We just had a meeting the other day with a player that is becoming a free agent in the summer, and we went through all his stats and where he's ranking compared to other midfielders in the league, and just giving him some points to say, you could improve in this, because this player last year was at this level and he got the move to here, and things like that. So it's just having as much information as possible to help decision making. So a lot of information that we pick up might be negative information as well, and that's going to happen in football. It's not all positive, but what we do is like to flip that negative or to question why it's happening. So the player the other day had his completed dribbles had dropped off a lot. The amount of dribbles he was having in the game. We spoke to him about it, and the manager was actually asking them to be a little bit more conservative. They'd been promoted last season, they wanted to stay in the league, and it was more a job to keep the ball rather than take risk and dribble. So us knowing that and us having that discussion about that, when we're speaking to other clubs and they're maybe asking why he's not done those things, we can have an explanation already in place to talk about that. So performance and speaking to the player is important, but then also a side that you might have seen recently as well in the press, and there's no doubt that it's starting to happen, is with contract negotiations and validating transfer fees and moves that might come forward. We're always looking at how the players are standing out compared to others, and why they should maybe get that move, or that's why they should be at that salary level, or compared to the ones in his team, we know he's on that much and ours is out competing that player. He should be on the same or not more. It's it's just filling up information and giving just more in your armory when you're talking to clubs and talking to players. So
does it help take the emotion out of it in a way? Because obviously that's an emotive subject when you're talking about.
I was going to say, do you think it's taking over them from the naked eye of how well a player performs in terms of when you're watching as a spectator, agent, scout, etc., that it's now becoming so too data heavy that people are actually using that sort of eye for a player?
I don't think it is, and I think it's and I don't think it's going to. I think people are getting better understanding of it, and they're accepting it more. That's for sure. But at the end of the day, when you're during a match, there's still going to be so many emotions going on the pitch. Every decision that a player makes is going to be based on how he feels at the moment, or how tired he is, or how the game's going, what situation is. Whether you're 3-0 down, you will react differently to being 3-0 up. So we can't read too much into the data. It's just good to know it, and good to have that argument. So the 100%, there's less of the naked eye than there used to be, but I think it's still going to be vitally important, because you can't. That's why we love football. I think you can never take away the variables that are going to affect every game.
I think it's an interesting concept that from a spectator perspective, you understand clubs giving feedback through data based on a game, the management staff, the coaching staff. It's interesting to get that actually from an agent's perspective as well, there's that continuous feedback using the data insights to help them from your side, plus the club side, the coaching staff. It's quite an all-round feedback loop. I guess that leads on to a question of do the two conflict in terms of, does the data from a club ever conflict with the data from an agent's perspective? You know, if you're using different programs or different tools, does it give you different advice?
Yeah, no, 100% agree with that. I think it's the more knowledge is for the better. But yeah, we have to respect the context of it all the time, and I think that's why everything we see you question. And don't take on face value. Like we say, we question with the players, why do you think that's happening? But we do the same with video when we're watching things. We don't just see someone not make a pass and say, you should have made that pass.
Yeah.
We want to be like, oh, why do you? And to be fair, it was one of the tactics of ours that we need to go down more the left side, or blah blah blah. So yeah, there is conflicting, and we're similar in other aspects where. What I've noticed a lot on the agency side is there's a lot more individual work with players than you think goes on. When I was in the clubs, I thought it was just they go home at 1 o'clock and that's it. That's all the input they get. But because they have so much time on their hands, and because clubs don't have the time to be so individual, and some players care so much about developing, there is a lot we can do with them off the pitch. Now, we 100% have to be careful with it, because there's so much scrutiny on players now anyway. There's so much opinion out there. Straight after the game, you can go on Twitter and get an idea for what people have thought of you in that game.
Yeah.
So we have to be really careful that we're not adding another layer to that scrutiny and putting a player down. And it's very much on whether you think the player understands it and takes it in the right way, and it's not going to affect him in the future. The other problem, with that, I think we saw it in the early days with when like the GPS data became so big and the tracking data came big, where players thought, they did a little bit of a cheeky run off the ball to go and get the fitness stats up, and when the ball had gone out, they might be doing a little jog on the spot and things like that. So we know that these stats can be swayed, so we also don't want to say to a player, you're not having enough successful passes, like what you need, and then the next thing you see them getting 3 or 4 backward passes in the game when they could have gone forward and affected the game, and so we want to be really careful that it's not affecting the player's performance too much, as well as what the manager might be asking them to do, because at the end of the day, we'd rather have the manager choosing him in the team than him having better stats on the day. So yeah, there's loads of conflict out there that you've got to be really aware of.
Yeah, I mean, by default, if someone said to me, you're not going to score any long shots, I'm going to take long shots, because I'm going to beat the stats. You have that emotional side depending on who the player is.
Do you think the next generation of players coming through the ranks, they look at the data from a different perspective compared to some of the more traditional ways, given that it's, I guess, a more newer thing in terms of the specific stats around Xcede and players' movements and things like this? So, though, I guess in academies now, are they on top of data from academy players, so that I guess in the next 5-10 years, by the time these players are professionals, it's going to be a slightly different mindset to maybe the current field, who might just be new to it for, say, the last 5 to 7 years, rather than
Yeah, no, I think that's a great shout. I think we've seen that over the last few years with, first of all, performance analysis coming in, coding and having video on every academy game started to come in, and then giving feedback on clips straight away after the game, and then the players had to take their own responsibility to clip their own games and look back at games. And that at first it was like, oh, it's too much, I don't want to see it, you know. And then because the at first team level that was, but then when you see the academy players starting to get into the first team, they actually want to see the clips, and the coaches want to work with them on the clips. We saw the same then on like nutrition and on fitness and gym work that's become more important, where the older ones are like, oh, it's not, you know, I don't want to get injured, this is how my body is, I'm all right. Because it's starting in the academies, we've seen that now it just becomes normal that you're talking about loading and you're talking about red zones and things like this. So, and yeah, I think stats is going to go the same way. I mean, when you see Xcede mentioned on, you know, on Match of the Day and things like that, then you know it's only going one way. I think even my dad, you mentioned, you know, working at Man United now, even him, 60 plus, you know, never spoke about stats before. I was speaking to him at the weekend, and he was saying about against Man City, they had a 0.01 XG against from set plays, and he presented it to the team and said, I don't have a clue what this number is, but I know it's low, and that's all he had to say for them to understand what was going on. So it's definitely coming into the game, and the younger ones are going to be even more a part of that. I mean, we're hearing now players in the dressing room, as soon as the managers stop talking, they're looking at the phone and looking at the app straight away just to see, you know, how many touches I had, what I did I get a big rating or whatever. So as well as it being good, I think that's something we've got to be aware of. It's going to be another challenge for the players to deal with when they come through, and not being too worried about being judged on that.
It's all over my football manager at the moment.
Yeah,
XG.
Obviously, it was something, you know, quite new. You've obviously been at the forefront of bringing it into a new era and the wider clubs. But have you got a Joe highlight reel of kind of some of the successes of, you know, you've been involved in this from such an early stage?
Yeah, no, I think it's one of them where I don't think it's ever been stats has been the sole reason for anything that's happened. Definitely a supporting role. When I've been working at club level, we've 100% used stats, but all different ways. Sometimes to try and get a buy-in from a manager that's looking for, you know, I need someone that's going to go and win more aerial duels and things like that. So you use it in that way. You'll have a chief exec that loves numbers more than the actual game. So, you know, to get his buy-in, the manager, you know, says, look, you know, we really want this player and this is why, and would you be all right to convince the chief exec that we need him as well? So you can use stats in that way. You might have an owner that's massively bought into it, and since I've come here, we've had some real good success. But it might be in terms of meetings with clubs where clubs have tried to put you on the back foot a little bit, and because you're going in there armed already, you're able to answer questions or talk about it. Or, you know, we had good success in the summer actually with a couple of strikers, with Jerry Yates and Will Keane, who were in two relegated teams, but both scored double figures. And because they're two relegated teams, you know, clubs are looking at it and thinking, you know, Championship clubs are looking at them thinking, well, they'll want to just stay in the Championship and not go down to League One, so we can maybe offer them a little bit less money. Clubs also are thinking, well, that team's got relegated, so we'll be able to buy them for less money. So it was our job to have a little bit more in the armoury to show why those players outperformed last season and why in your team they are worth the money that's been asked for them. We just did that so simple in a way of shots per goals and things like that. The actual amount of opportunities they got was almost half of what maybe a Gyökeres at the top of the table was getting, or a promoted team. And we also looked at the amount of defensive actions they did. Jerry Yates was doing double the defensive actions of any other striker. Yeah. So you can imagine the amount of chances he's getting, or he's doing that much work. He might be tired when he gets shots opportunities, and he's still scoring double figures. We put an argument that in your teams he's going to be so much better, or he is worth this salary, or he is worth that money if that's what they're asking. So, yeah, they were success stories, but it's never on its own. There's always feelings involved and values involved.
Still the people factor.
Yeah, 100%. Like all them players, you know, both of those players' mentality is top, and that was another big reason for them to get bought as well. So, yeah, it's again success stories, but not alone. that's for sure.
On the subject of clubs, if I look from our lens, we have clubs, where we support from a commercial data perspective, increase ticket sales, shirt sales, and then we have obviously the player performance data and the analytics from that side. But is your lens that clubs are probably more advanced in terms of the commercial aspect of technology and data, and that they're kind of now starting to get more around the player data, or do you think there's a good kind of balance in the mix?
Yeah, I think they're always going to be stronger and things like that, because it's very black and white, and we do this and this increases, or we win games and the tickets go up, or it's a Saturday game at this time and it's usually more tickets. So I think there's a lot more black and white to those, and that's why it's always a little bit murky. I think the massive part of it is buy-in from the club or the manager or whoever's, and that's why you've seen it two of the most successful of being like a Brighton and a Brentford, and there's no surprise that they their owners are into the odds and the betting, and that's that means that they can put their philosophy across the club and go, this is it, like this is what we're doing, and there's no change from it, and everyone has to buy into it. So it depends on definitely on the buying of the club, but it's not just on the performance side and the recruitment side. There's a lot going on with the way that the scouting departments are going to work now as well, in terms of the way they filter down players, but also how they they start to use ChatGPT and AI to put players to the top of the list that are getting better reports and things like that. So there'll be less diving into the reports and more spitting out of information that's going to go on. And all the GPS and loading stuff. I think we've seen this season, there's been so many injuries that are going on that are really affecting team seasons at the moment, and there's that many games anyway, and it's getting more athletic. So any way that they can start to use data as well to affect those decisions is going to be big. Also in the rehab of when they should come back and how quickly they should come back. So yeah, I think there's a lot more going on than we know as well. I think there's a massive protection of what's going on. I don't think any of us could really, we know there's a lot going on at Liverpool, but none of us would ever probably read an article or really know what's going on at Liverpool in their data. And it's the same with Brentford or Brighton, and I know scouts that work for both, and they couldn't tell you how the players are getting filtered to their attention. The club aren't going to reveal even to their own staff why those players are on your list to watch, but they are, so they must be doing something right statistically. So I think there's a massive protection, and there was a great analogy that I heard the other day where they were saying if in a boat race, if you want to beat the boat in front, you can't follow the same path as them, and I think that's what clubs are trying to do is do different things to different ones and not just copy each other. I think if you're trying to copy each other, what you got to do is just stay in your lane. This is what we want to do, and we have to do it to the best we can, and make sure everyone buys into it.
Yep.
In terms of the data available, obviously there's a number of platforms, but as you said, a club's then having their own internal teams that are coding the data and building their own data, I guess, warehouses or stuff, or is there, I guess, are most clubs using the data from the same sort of tools and programs?
Yeah, that's where the advantages are going to be gained. So I think they're all getting it from similar packages, like as raw data, but it's what they're doing with that, which is going to be the difference going forward. There's platforms that people are subscribing to, the clubs are subscribing to, that you can use a platform maybe better than other clubs, but they're still probably going to have similar outcomes. But it's the ones that are getting the raw data, that are building data teams, but it doesn't matter what you produce. The biggest thing that I would say, and it'd be the same in your business, is how you translate the data to the points that you want to make, and the stuff that's digestible for the coaches and for players. And that really is where I've found maybe the fall down of data and stats coming into it. I think you'll see that there's probably more noise around Twitter and X and Instagram and things like that. That there's probably Twitter analysts that are better than some that are in clubs and things. But you take those and put them in clubs, and it's very hard to translate what you're trying to say into an actual action. I've seen it. I've seen people fail that have come into the industry that are very number minded and data orientated, and they just can't, either they struggle with the variables that go on and the decision making of people, and and this is the best right back. You've got to take this right. And the manager's like, yeah, but I want that one because I've worked with him. I know he fits my team. I know he's a good lad. I need a leader in the dressing room, and he's going to do it. And they do lose their head about it, and they think I can't just keep saying the right thing. They're not doing it. They're not doing what I'm telling them. So I have seen data analysts that come in and struggle, and I think that's why you'll see quite a lot on the outside that are working maybe for journalists now, or companies that are gonna help, because they get that little bit more freedom. Look, it's a reason that I'm enjoying being away from the clubs a little bit, because of the emotion that's in a training ground is just, you can't recreate it anywhere else. It's unbelievable. I mean, you can be high on a Sunday and low as a snake's belly on a Wednesday, and the differences in process and decision making that comes from those results is unbelievable. I used to dread going in on a Monday, say I had an important meeting about the future on a Monday, but we just lost 2 games in a row. The manager never was, and rightly so, was never looking past 2 months really. He's trying to stay in the job and trying to get the next win, and we couldn't talk about what we were trying to recruit for in 2 years' time, or if academy player was better than one we already had, or the one we were looking at, or how are we going to develop our scouting department and things like that. It was, or even what we discussed last week, we don't, we're only going to focus on a right back and a left winger next season, so let's put real focus on those. And the next minute, you lose 3 games, the left back's been, making mistakes, and it's, who's the left backs out there? Who do we need now? And you end up, diluting your work because you spread yourself up. So it's one of the strangest environments to work in. And I think that's why you've seen so many, owners that have come in with all the right ideas and thinking they can do it, and then they get sucked into signing players to appease the fans or to make the manager happy and things like that. So yeah, the translation of the data and having people and you're now seeing actually analysts, performance analysts are now making their way onto the bench, which is brilliant, and making their way onto the training ground, who they can analyse tactically a game on the video and in game as well, and their input's needed now on the pitch. And I think,
well, it's interesting. I was going to mention that the in-game piece.
Yeah,
is that something that's happening more frequently? The halftime in the locker room, it's part manager, this needs to change, or we're doing well here. But part of that is, is that live in-game data now shared in the dressing room at halftime, or do they always leave it to the end?
Yeah, I think for the right argument, it's definitely mentioned. I know clips are 100% used anyway. Managers, or you'll see them when they're mentioning it, and you show that at halftime. Like, make sure you've got that video for me. So yeah, in game is I think it's going to come bigger. I don't think it's there too much at the moment. I think it's a little bit scary to overload in those 15 minutes of emotion at half time. But I think the data is going to start influencing the coaches' decisions now going forward. I think that's one of the biggest things with AI. I think someone told me that there are going to be AI scouts, AI coaches, coming through, and they're going to be there to translate what's going on and to make in-game decisions that are going to be big. Like if we subbed this player on, and took this one off, how's that going to affect the game in the right or the wrong way?
I guess the worrying thing is you get into a world of, what's best for the game performance versus the club. Commercially, you get into that argument of, well, actually, if we win by a small amount, it's worse for ticket sales than if we win by 7. And, you hand things over to...
Yeah,
it's like it's not people, right?
I guess is what we're joking about, is like, is the long shot going to be redundant in football in 5 years' time, because the stats will tell you're more likely to score if you keep the ball than shooting from 30 yards out. Like, do you think it will literally become like that? Obviously to an extent, because it's still going to be the game that we will love, but do you think people will be told don't shoot from 30 yards out because you're more likely to score if you make 5 passes around the box and create that space than having a 30-yard shot?
No, I think it will for a period. I think it's all going to come in trends, and it's like, no one wanted to play 4-4-2 anymore, and then 4-4-2 is coming back, and so it's just it'll go in circles, because we all know, like, if you we'll look at where did Man City usually score from? Oh, it's from that pullback area, right? We've got to set up and make sure we defend that area today. So you'd think that would naturally start to stop, and it might be the same with long shots, where people, defenders are being told, don't even go and close that down. Like we want them to, we want to stack the box and protect the box and let them play it. So you might see more long shots going in from deflections and things like that. So yeah, I think 100%. I think we've already, when we spoke about it earlier, I think there are stats already that a year and a half ago it was dropping off massively in terms of how many long shots were going in, and you've told me that it's getting even more so. So I think that's the way that people are playing as well. It was funny when I lived in Holland for a couple of years, and when I worked there and I played football over there, and they were a different way of playing over there. And our left winger, I love to get a yard and cross. And there'd be no one in the box. They're all on the edge going like, no, keep possession. Like, we want to keep the ball. Let's keep the ball. So I think it's just a trend of the managers that have come in as well, and the way that the academies now, you watch Cat 1 games, and it's all about keeping the ball and pressing is the two big things. So yeah, I think the long shots is more a sign of the way that teams are playing, and it could easily switch and go the other way again.
Nice. I guess one question from it's kind of, I suppose, kind of personal, kind of professional, but when you're approaching clubs, and I guess this is maybe a conversation you have, with your dad as well at the same time, but is there a sell you're having to make into some clubs, or to, if you're having a conversation with your dad around a player, where you're actually having to start to sell the use of technology? You're good, you know what you're talking about. Are you having to almost sell, though, that data into clubs for them to take a chance on a player?
I think you are, and I definitely don't sit here pretending to be an expert on all this. Like, data's never been something that I've been brought up with or know a lot about. I just know the value is there, and people are listening to it, and it's getting stronger and stronger. I mean, we had a team meeting today. I think we had an hour talking about the data and talking about how the players are enjoying it, and this happened at this club and this happened at this. So the fact that you're getting by, and then like everything, I've always had adapted to the times. I think when I first started, I said performance analysis was the thing that was growing, so I went into that at the time, and then I realised that the video scouting with the input of Y Scout as a platform, where all the games are loaded onto there from around the world. Even every game is tagged for every touch that the player makes on the pitch. You can just watch that single touch and that single pass. That was when I started to then get into video scouting. And then the game started to go into people that come through my background, started to get leadership roles. Departments started to change around. Before it was very much a chief scout that the manager knew, that would just do all the signings and push the players. Those departments started to change, so there was like a head of emerging talent, a head of UK, a head of abroad, head of North, head of South, all these types of, where it wasn't just about scouting, it was also knowing the agents, about helping produce presentations to get players in and things like that. So I then got onto that next adaptation, and had to adapt to that and become a bit more of a leadership role, and take more responsibility. So I think this next step with data is just another one of those, just another step where people are gonna have to get used to it. And in terms of translating it, as long as you're still respecting what football is, and understanding that you guys that go out there under a lot of pressure, and we understand that you're never going to be perfect. I think as long as it's backing up points that people want to make, and helping them maybe communicate with players, because I know that's a big aspect now of. The generation that are coming through now are completely different in the way that they communicate, and the way they want to watch films or get information is so different. So, if you want to coach now in the modern game, you've got to find a way to communicate with them.
I know we're just talking about how it's changed from when you first started. I know it's the $1 million question, but how do you see the data? Like, is there any areas you think that their data is, I guess, being underutilized, and where do you sort of see it moving over the next, I guess the football changes quite often, but in the next 3 to 5 years?
I think the fitness and the physical data is gonna get stronger and stronger and more available. I think the way that it's gone now in the last few years with the amount of focus that's put on pressing and high intensity actions, I think that's going to become more and more. But that will also be used on injury prevention and helping the fitness guys how much work we should do during the week. That's all going on now. But I think that'll just get stronger, and there'll be more trends with the injuries and things. I think at the moment still trying to find that reasoning for injuries and things. But again, so many variables in terms of the weather and the way pitches that we play on. I mean, it's we talk about that in stats as well. We've got a player on loan at Bradford at the moment, and I took a picture. He's a right centre back of a free, and I took a picture of the spot where he plays, and it was literally a ball patch on the pitch. And so his pass percentage at home might be different from it is away when he's got more grass. So yeah, I think fitness data and things. I think the AI side of it is going to become huge, and is going to create decisions for others. And in-game stuff, like you say, I think is going to become massively important. I think the trend analysis stuff is big now that we are getting so much good data, and it's going to carry on. We're going to have examples over 10 years, which is just going to make us a lot more accurate in what we're saying. But the big one that everyone's always looking for is, if I want that player from the Dutch league that plays for that club, and we put him in our team, is he going to improve us, or is he going to be okay? And I think that's something that no one's can ever quite get right, but you'd think that the next few years that'll get closer and closer. And I think that's what these clubs now are. That's behind the scenes. That's what they're building the most of, is just the predictive analysis of taking a player from there and putting him in there. I think that's probably what is going on behind the scenes right now.
I guess in the world there's always going to be anomalies, because it's not just about performance, but it's about personality and how quickly it takes them to adapt to different countries and surroundings, I would imagine.
Well, yeah. On that note, I mean, is the UK in terms of a talent pool bigger in data and insights for player performance than Europe or internationally, or do you kind of see that players from everywhere in the world are all now very focused around how it can improve their fitness or recovery or whatever else it might be?
Yeah. No, I think it is. I think there's obviously more.
The economy is better in the Premier League and the Championship than other places, so there's probably more funding that can go into it. But
I think what you find is they know they're having to do it different because they haven't got as much. So I'm seeing that in the lower leagues. There's more clubs now in the lower leagues that are going off data and we don't, or even decision making. So we won't sign anyone over 25 and things like that. So I think that's coming in. But the predictive across personality, like you spoke about, is almost impossible. I think I've even seen it where I used to dread the first day training when you'd signed a player. It was even that important that first day was massive. That the players respected the player that's come in and gone, to be fair, we like him, or he comes in a little bit timid and the manager loses a bit of trust straight away, and it's not quite right. We used to have that with loan players a lot of the time, which was a unique experience coming to the first team, and now they were in the first few sessions was huge. So personality of coming and living in England, settling down, having too much time on your hands, which a lot of them do, to think, all these things that even if we do a trend of French League One players is a big thing at the moment, that they're the ones that come across and do well, but within that you're going to have different personalities that come across, or they're at different points in their timeline, or they've been different things in the youth that have helped them get here. So yeah, I can't even begin to explain how many variables are going on mentally and even physically of what their upbringing has been. I mean, we've seen it with ourselves recently with players that are coming out of non-league and how different they are from players that are coming out of academy setups. We've moved a few recently from that have actually played at Bromley, and when I go and watch them, you can just see a tenacity in their eyes, a way that they use the body compared to players that you've seen in Cat 1, the way that they can win their headers and things, whereas Cat 1's a lot on the floor. The way that when they have the ball, they're a lot more efficient with it because they know there's suddenly going to be someone smashing into them, or they don't get the ball as much in a game. So when they do get it, it's got to be top. Whereas a lot of the academy stuff, they get loads of touches of the ball, so they're used to having it and used to keeping possession. So yeah, there's so many variables even within England and the way that these players are being brought up that the data's not going to be able to cover. That's for sure.
If the kind of technology, I guess, progression in quite a short amount of time we've had, do you think if that had applied maybe 10 years earlier, we'd have more Lionel Messis to talk about? Would we have, a really kind of top tier that is more than one or two names that you tend to talk about?
No, I don't think so. I don't think the data's there to increase your potential or your ability by that much. I think it is it's the 1% and the marginal gains I think that you're going to get from the data being strong, and it might make teams recruit better, but it's still the same players that they're going to have to recruit. So I think players can look better when they're in a better team and a team that's more suited to them. I mean, I had the rule really, even when us at clubs are always wary of signing Brentford players because they were looking brilliant for them, but they were in such a team that knew everybody's job. You see it with like a Brighton now, they all know each other's job off by heart, and they all know where each other's positioned, and you've seen that with maybe a few players that have come out of those clubs that they struggle to adapt then to another club. So yeah, no, I don't think. It's an interesting question. It's one you have to think about probably, but off the top of my head, I can't see how it could have that much improvement to really make someone into an Mbappe.
I guess my thought process is, I listened to an interview about Eden Hazard and his player performance when he went to Real Madrid, and he took it a lot more seriously, really dug into what the data was telling him to do, how to train, and arguably it was worse for him personally and professionally. Is there a point where actually there's too much information for players?
Yeah, no, I do. I 100% think there is. It's such a reactive game, and I think the least amount of information you can give someone to make sure they know their job on the day is the key, and the balance that coaches are trying to find. I think they are becoming better at taking it on board, but I think it takes time. Like Carl Walker talking about Man City the other day, and they were asking him, do you take all that in that Pep's saying, like all them fit? And he said, after 7 years, yeah. But do you have enough time with these players now to really get that into the player of what you want from them and helping them understand it, taking that on board? Or you can see some that go out there with they don't know if they're coming or going because we want to go like this, but the game's kind of going this way. We've got to adapt to the game a little bit as well. So yeah, it's as I say, there's so much scrutiny now on the players that adding another layer to it, it either fills your confidence or makes you think too much.
Yeah.
Do you think in the wider picture of it that it makes football more or less competitive in the sense of you've got your case studies like your Brighton and Brentford where they can be innovative with data rather than just a financial perspective, who's got the most money? Or do you think it will get to a point where the best teams will have the most expensive, largest data team and whatnot, that it will actually eventually go back to the financial power rather than the innovation, if that makes sense?
Yeah. No, I agree. You'd think it would, but it's so hard to be one of those top teams and take risks and gambles sometimes on data as well and get it wrong. So for the teams like a Brentford and Brighton, they both started from lower leagues and being able to build this process up and to be able to make mistakes probably on the way that no one knows about and be able to build it up and to get real buy-in because you're winning and you're winning and you're winning. And you might not, on a Brentford and Brighton, to be fair, for a couple of weeks, you might not think about how they did or they've lost a couple of games. Whereas a Man United or Chelsea or Arsenal, when they're losing, the world's coming down on you. You don't have that time really to set it up. And you haven't got time with the players either, so you can't take players and think, we'll just put them in for 6 months. And they got, look at what like a Højlund at Man U, what he was getting at the start, the sticker he was getting. Some players wouldn't have been able to get past that. Onana the same, Martinez that went in there. So you don't get much time at those clubs unless you're mentally right and you can stick with it. So a lot of those clubs like to go a little bit safer, and they like to take the ones that have done it data wise underneath. They can take from them. So No, I think it's great for competition because it makes the ones that haven't got as much, if they do it in the right way, they can go and have a go.
Do you think that's why, I guess, some of these people that have gone from Brighton to Chelsea have struggled, even some of the coaching staff and whatnot, because it's such a different setup from these big, so-called bigger clubs to these more data-orientated clubs that aren't, I guess, as much in the spotlight?
100%. Like you've got to be such a strong
Character to keep doing something that you're being told when it doesn't feel right, and you're getting a lot of pressure, or you're not winning, or
you're at a big club that's got to win today, and it's hard to make those decisions on the pitch when there's that much pressure and emotion going on that you feel at the top. You just don't, and you don't get this much time to go and do that. And what the other part of that is, when you've got 10 others on the pitch and a manager on the side that is all massively believing in it as well, that is so much easier to do. I mean, we went down to Brighton once and we asked some of the senior players, and they were like, they've never been coached like this before, but we know our next move. Like, when that comes into me, I know for a fact over my right shoulder the winger will be coming in to come and receive the ball. Whereas if everyone's not on the same wavelength and you're just flicking that one in the corner and it's going out every time, there's no one there for it. If you lose confidence in it and you stop doing it. So yeah, the biggest thing I've always said about
the data side of things is that
it's only as good as the buy-in that the whole club's got, and the understanding of owners as well, to be like, look, I know it might not go smoothly, but over time you're going to get improvements and gains. You got to have a manager that understands it and that'll stick with things. It's the same with ways of playing. Some that will build up from the back. You've got to have a lot of confidence in it, and the whole team's got to buy into it. So yeah, it's definitely going to be harder for the bigger teams to implement. And I'm sure there's those departments at the big clubs that are like, I'd love to take that player, but he's probably not going to play in our first team straight away, or we'll have to loan him out first, whereas there'll be teams that are lower down that are going, no, you'll come straight into our first team. Like, no, you'll come here and then we'll sell you to the bigger ones. And by the time that is they're more expensive for the bigger clubs, they're much bigger signing, and everyone has the pressure of a big signing after that. So yeah, not an easy one to get right, even if you've got all the funding and the capabilities.
Conscious of time, I guess I have one last question, and I feel like we can't talk about technology within football without talking about things like VAR. Will we get to a point where the technology, it kind of takes away the controversy of football, the pieces that, have flexibility in the game? Does it get to a point where everything is so automatic in decisions, artificial intelligence referees and things like that? Does it go too far, or do you think that the league in general and the players, will actually kind of stop that from happening? They'll keep the game to a certain level?
Yeah, I don't think it'll come out of the game. I think there's always too much knockback really from anything that's changing. I think we saw that with like the blue cards in the other day. I think there's that much opinion to keep things the same, that marginally I think there'll be improvements, and stuff like the VAR had to come in. We know that, but there's still so many problems with that. There's still opinions based on that, isn't there?
Almost creates more controversy.
Yeah, I don't think there'll ever be something that can be created to decide whether that was a foul or not, or that was a penalty or not, or that was, his hand was in the wrong position. I think there's always going to be humans involved in this, and while there is, the emotions and things are always going to take over, and there's thousands of people going to these games that are changing the way that the players feel on the pitch as well. So yeah, hope it doesn't go that way, because I think that's where we've been able to be different, and we don't want it black and white where you think, when we sign this player, it's 100% going to work. It's that little bit of trepidation, I think, that gives us all the talking points, and also gives players a chance that are maybe not showing those numbers, but are actually, he's surprised us this year, that no one would ever signed him, but look how well he's done.
Well, there's constant examples, Leicester winning the league.
Yeah, you need that.
Yeah, 100%.
You need that for people to aim for. That's for sure. So no, I think it's all going positive in the right direction at the moment. I feel like the buy-in out there is good from all angles of the game, in the media as well. They're giving better analysts now and better things forward. So yeah, as long as it keeps positive and in the right direction, just trying to keep that balance, isn't it, going forward?
Yeah. Without giving too much away, how do people such as yourself keep up to date with the trends and technology specifically within the sports data world?
Yeah, nothing really, no secret thing with it really. I think people are quite open to share stuff now, I think there's a lot of, like I said, there's a lot of secretive over what particular clubs are doing. But in terms of packages and what things are out there, I'm big for keeping on top of things on LinkedIn and on Twitter and Instagram, and also, hearing what clubs. I'm always asking what clubs are doing and what packages they're on at the moment. I saw a new one the other day, which is a package that I had a trial for, which involved ChatGPT and things like that. So yeah, all these companies are out there, and they're trying to get into you all the time and show them. I think there could become a point where there is probably too much. The companies are not different, and
it's finding their own niche. But yeah,
at the moment there's a lot of them trying to get into the game, and what's interesting is they're all either coding it themselves or they're using the data from like an Opta or a StatsBomb or a Wirescout, and using it in their own way. So the next kind of debate, and I think what people are trying to work out now, is who's got the best data. I mean, how do we know who's got the best data? It's an amazing thing that they're trying to look into, but they're trying to say, they're more accurate than them
all the time, right?
Yeah, and trying to, we just did it upstairs actually. One of our players was, we were surprised actually, that had some really good successful dribble scores. So we were able to look on the videos at his specific dribbles to have a look at, and it was actually surprising, how many dribbles he did. That actually told us something, that it might only be one or two a game, but when he does it really well. And so yeah, it's constant checking the stats. But we also saw, I want to know successful dribble. What does that look like on the thing? So we had a look at 10 today to see what it was, and some of them the contentious. You know what I mean? It's like the XG scores. Who's deciding it? Who's saying that was a
Spectator?
Yeah, I know they try and do it on this maybe two players in the way, or it's this close to the goal, or it's this angle and things like that. But yeah, when we're trying to compare it, well, do you take their XG score and they look at their XG score? So
yeah, there's always going to be complication, and that'll probably add to why it'll never be perfect.
I dread to think what my six-side scores would be for dribbling percentages, shots on target. Yeah, it'd be awful.
Yeah, you'd be bashing.
I'd
it
be
off
one of
the
those
sides.
people not wanting to know.
It's like is the XG based off Rooney or a Sunday League footballer?
Yeah.
Because obviously Rooney's XG in a position outside the box is going to be different to you.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
No, that's the beauty of it. I think is it can't be perfect, and it's going to come down to emotions. I think that's what probably the biggest outcome of what we spoke about today, isn't it? It's brilliant, and it's going to add more to it. But I think it's going to keep on being a beautiful game. That's for sure.
Good. Well, what a positive note to end on. I know you're busy, so look, thank you very much for spending the time.
No, thanks for coming. Brilliant.
Really interesting insights.
Good.
Thank
Love
you.
it. Thanks, Joe.